The chair recognizes the gentleman from Tennessee for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Barr, I'm the chairman of the Subcommittee on the Constitution, Civil Rights, and Civil Liberties, so this is most pertinent hearing to me. Firstly, I'd like to ask you if you will work with us and allow the head of the Civil Rights Division, Assistant Attorney General Eric Dryband, to testify before this committee this fall.
I'll talk to him about it.
We encourage him.
I'll talk to him about it.
All right. I've closely watched actions taken by the federal government in Lafayette Park in June and currently in Portland, Oregon. According to a DOJ document dated June 4, received by this committee, 1,500 federal agents from 10 different agencies were deployed to confront protesters in Washington, D.C. At Lafayette Park, which has long been honored and accepted as a place of protest in our nation's capital, on the first day of June, the world watched in horror on live television as federal agents deployed by the administration, and with you present and telling him to get it done, used force to clear Lafayette Park so that the president, with you and others at your side, could walk across the park and have a photo op in front of St. John's Church. This was anathema to the bishop of the diocese and the rector of the church. It was also an affront to the Constitution and to the American people. Given the timing and the coordinated attack against the peaceful demonstrators, it strains credulity that this was not planned for use of political purposes. And just yesterday, Major DeMarco testified to another committee of Congress that the protesters were peaceful, and that's what the majority of people have said, and the response was excessive. When did you first learn that the president planned to walk through the park and go to St. John's Church?
First, I'd like to respond to what you...
Would you please answer my question? My time is limited.
I learned sometime in the afternoon that the president might come out of the White House, and then later in the afternoon I heard that he might go over to the church.
So it was absolutely necessary the park be cleared for his walk.
No, that had nothing to do with that. The plan to move...
Mr. Attorney General, it was necessary that the park be cleared, and it was done, and you said, get it done. Well, I have the time. Thank you. In Portland, we've seen mothers and we've seen veterans who were peacefully protesting, not threatening the federal courthouse, beaten and gassed. Unidentified armed federal agents violently attacked demonstrators in a violation of the First Amendment's freedom of assembly and arrested citizens without individualized suspicion in a violation of the Fourth Amendment's protection against unreasonable searches and seizures and a warrant requirement. You've gone through the Fifth Amendment and due process and just negated it. And the 10th Amendment, which leaves general policing to the law enforcement, to the states, has been forgotten. Maybe what happened was your secret police were poorly trained, just like your Bureau of Prisons guards were poorly trained and allowed the most notorious inmate in our nation's last several years, Jeffrey Epstein, to conveniently commit suicide. Sad. You misled Congress and the American people about Special Counsel Mueller's findings with your, quote, summary, unquote, of his report. It was issued about a month before you released the redacted portion of the Mueller report. But you set the stage. You set the stage such that the Special Counsel objected to the accuracy of how it was reported by the press and what you said. And federal judge Reggie Walton, appointed by George W. Bush, declared in a ruling that your summary was, quote, distorted, unquote, and misleading, unquote, and that the court could not trust you. Further, Judge Walton stated your report was, quote, a calculated attempt to influence public disclosure about the Mueller report in favor of President Trump, unquote. This committee still does not have the unredacted Mueller report. America has still not seen the unredacted Mueller report. Your excuses for not releasing it because it had to do with ongoing cases no longer exist because those ongoing cases have been completed or commuted or finished. Other attorney generals work with this Judiciary Committee to see that the American public and that the Judiciary Committee had unredacted copies of that report. You have not. You've gone to court to stall it. This report needs to be given to this committee. In Michael Cohen, you've treated him differently than Michael Flynn and Roger Stone. In Michael Flynn, you've attempted to dismiss the charges, even after he twice pled guilty. And in Roger Stone, you went further. Mr. Barr, John Lewis said to us, if not me, who? If not now, when? That's why I introduced H.Res. 1032, which would require this committee to investigate your conduct as Attorney General and determine whether you should be impeached. That is my constitutional duty. I yield back the balance of my time.
May I respond to these?
I seek recognition.
I'm sorry, what did you?
I would
the
like
chair
to, I would like to
recognizes
seek
Mr. Cohen.
recognition for unanimous consent requests.
Yes, you are
Thank you.
recognized.
I'd like to introduce for the record a Slate article entitled "Why Trump Chose Portland," which describes the racial history of the state and the Portland Police Bureau. I'd also like to introduce an op-ed from Mary McCord, who writes her words were twisted to justify the department's disingenuous position to drop charges against Michael Flynn after he had already pled guilty. I'd like to introduce an op-ed from Jonathan Kravis describing the political interference in the Roger Stone case and why he resigned from the Department of Justice. And I'd like to introduce a statement from over 2,600 former DOJ officials calling for Attorney General Barr's resignation because of his assault on the rule of law, and a letter from the New York City Bar urging Congress to commence formal inquiries into a pattern of conduct by Attorney General Barr that threatens public confidence in the fair and impartial administration of justice, and finally a letter from 27 of the District of Columbia's most prominent attorneys and law professors, including 4 past presidents of the D.C. Bar, calling for an ethics investigation into Mr. Barr's conduct. And
With that
last but not
objection.
least, a letter from over 80% of the George Washington University Law School faculty, your alma mater, saying his actions have posed and continue to create a clear and present danger to the even-handed administration of justice, to civil liberties, and to the constitutional order.
Okay, without objection.
Madam Chair, one more
The-
unanimous consent.